Good evening, everyone. I'm Rudy Trevino.
And I'm Leslie Adamy. At the top tonight, new details surrounding a homicide investigation that began back in November of last year. Corpus Christi police have arrested a man who allegedly killed a 17-year-old outside of his home. Those new details in our top story tonight at 10.
Around 2 o'clock this afternoon, 18-year-old Eddie Quesada, who has an outstanding warrant for the murder, was arrested after a supervisor with the CCPD's gang unit recognized him at a traffic stop. Quesada driving off, resulting in a high-speed chase on McCardle near La Palmera Mall, but officers ultimately caught up to him.
That's right. In some background, it was on November 27th of last year when police were called to a shooting at a home along Grizzley Drive near the Bill Witt City Park. 2 people were shot and hospitalized, and that's where 17-year-old Michael Quintero died from his injuries. We originally reported that Quesada was taken into custody and booked into the Nueces County Jail on a murder charge on December 9th. That bond set at $1 million. However, Quesada was later released on January 20th of this year, pending further investigation.
On June 25th, the grand jury reconvened and returned a true bill for Quesada related to the incident. 2 warrants for murder and aggravated assault. Quesada's bond is now set at $750,000.